My name is Ela Başak Atakan, and it's my honor and privilege to be hosting on behalf of Mundi Publications, James Nestor, whose book Nefes just got published by Mundi. Hello, James. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I have to say thank you. Thank you for joining us. And I mean, when Mundi people asked me to do this, I was so thrilled. And my first reaction after reading the book was telling them, my God, I found my soulmate. Because I will ask you to please introduce yourself, but I'm a co-author like you. And just in 2020, just like yourself, my own personal quest to find healers got published by Mundi itself. And I have dedicated a whole chapter to breathing. So hello, soulmate. Can we get to know you, please?
Sure. Do you want to know my background or my bio or what works?
What led you, let's say, to write a book about breathing? And sure, if you've got previous books, we'd love to find out about them too.
Well, I had suffered from various respiratory issues, which I was told were completely normal for years and years by doctors. I would get mild pneumonia and bronchitis. And even though I was exercising all the time, eating the right foods, all of that, I kept having breathing problems. And I didn't think too much about it until eventually it got so bad and so annoying that I started pursuing ways of fixing this beyond antibiotics. Antibiotics are great for acute, short problems, but they do nothing for the core issue of respiratory issues. So I started exploring different breathing techniques, and I felt a tremendous improvement from them. But I wondered where the science was behind this. Was it just a placebo effect? Was it just something that I was responding to? And that's really what started it. So this book, there was not one thing that really triggered me to want to go and spend years and years researching this stuff. It was many things over many years.
And I think I read on the internet somewhere that you're a scientific journalist. Isn't that right, James?
That's right, which is why my improvements through breathing weren't of interest to me, because just because something works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for anyone else. And it wasn't until I saw free divers, and these are people who can hold their breath for 6, 7, 8 minutes at a time and dive to depths of 100 meters, 150 meters, just incredible, that I realized that there was something much more profound to do with our breathing. And I was even told by people when I came back from a freediving assignment to write about it, that what these people were doing was impossible. They said, there's no way a human can do that. Well, I just spent a week with them and watched them do it every day, So that's an interesting thing to consider when you're a journalist, is even when there's completely objective proof, there's data, there's videotape, when people still don't believe it, that really intrigues me. And I wanted to learn more of the science behind it.
Pseudoscience, they call it. They love calling it pseudoscience, which you also touch upon in the book.
Yeah. And that's such a strange phrase, because there's science and then there's not science. So there isn't pseudoscience or new age science. Things either are supported by data or they aren't. And it's a real hard thing for people to have their belief systems torn apart when there is objective scientific proof showing that they're wrong. And when I went into this book, I had no skin in the game on one side or the other. I was just a curious person, didn't know anything about this world. Talked to tons of doctors. There's doctors in my family, but I also talked to tons of other people. And where does the data lead us? Where does the science lead us? So this whole idea of that there's new age science and there's it's things are either true or they're not.
Things maybe that haven't been researched just yet, that are just being, that are just catching our attention. So come on, let's reel them in. What is so bad about mouth breathing?
Well, where can I begin here? So, when you breathe through the mouth, you are exposing your lungs and your body to everything in the external environment. If you live in a city like me, that means dust, allergens, pollution, smog, mold, so on and so forth. Our nose is this incredible filter. So, it not only heats up air, moistens it, and pressurizes it, but it actually filters out all of this gunk, including viruses and bacteria. So when you see people, especially nowadays, walking around breathing through their mouths, this is one of the worst things you can do. And scientists, researchers have known this for more than 100 years. And our ancient ancestors have been writing about this for thousands and thousands of years. And yet you go out on the street today and 25 to 50% of the people are breathing through their mouths.
And that's wrong. Or they don't know any better.
No, you can do it. I guess there's no right or wrong. You can do it if you want to, but it's terrible for your health. It can affect the skeleton of your face. It can affect the musculature. It can make you more prone to suffer from snoring and sleep apnea, make you more prone to suffer from chronic respiratory issues, lung infections, nasal infections, chronic sinusitis, apnea, anxiety, panic, asthma. I can go on. So you can still do it. I'm not here to tell you what to do and what not to do. But if you want to better defend your body and allow yourself to operate more efficiently, then of course you have to breathe through your nose. Look at any other animal in the animal kingdom. How are they breathing the vast majority of the time? Dogs breathe through their mouths to offload heat. That's why they're breathing through their mouths. But everything else is breathing through their noses.
Mm-hmm. Fun fact, and I thought this was really interesting. Like many people, I've had orthodonty. I had when I was a kid, teenager, again in my 20s, because they were never getting straight. I had orthodonty for countless years. And as a result, I have 4 molars missing that got extracted when I was a teenager. I have a deviated septum. But as a convert, I'm also lately, let's say, started practicing Qigong, which is teaching me to breathe through my nose. And I know this is not a question, but I'm going to, here's my question. Throughout the book, you talk about the lost art of breathing. And so what are your observations, or what are some of the details of this lost art that you found?
Well, I'd love to say that you're a rare case. The fact that you've had teeth extracted and braces and headgear and retainers and a deviated septum, but you are actually like most people on the planet today. So most people have these issues. Most people have crooked teeth. If we get them fixed, a lot of people get extractions. Most people get braces. Deviated septum, about 75% of the modern population has a deviated septum. So this is so common that it's just widespread. No matter what population you're looking at, any industrialized population has these issues. So when we have a mouth that is too small for its face, that's why you have crooked teeth. It has nothing to do with the teeth themselves. If the teeth have enough space, they will grow in perfectly straight. Those are just the facts. Your mouth is too small. My mouth is too small. 90% of the population's mouths are too small. So we fix them. We want straight teeth. But when you go through that process of fixing them, sometimes you can make a small mouth smaller. And when you make a small mouth smaller, the rest of the face can collapse around that, and the airway can collapse, and it can make it harder for you to breathe. So this is not some new age theory. This is scientific fact. And all you have to do is look at ancient skulls and look at their perfectly straight teeth and just wonder for a while how far we've gone, how far we've strayed from this natural form. So that's that with the mouth and teeth stuff. But you wanted to know specifically what was there another question in there, or?
The question is, can you give some details about your methods as you rediscovered this lost art of breathing?
Well, the how to is very easy. I can tell you about 4 seconds how to breathe. You want to breathe through your nose. You want to breathe slowly. You want to breathe lightly and deep with a big exhale. That's it. How hard is that? Not very hard. But if you just understand the how, but don't understand the why or what, where the stuff is coming from, how it's affecting you, it doesn't do anything. Just like you could tell someone, eat natural foods. Okay. But unless you know the backstory of that, and so that's what I try to focus on the book. That's why you can just look at the chapter titles and say, oh, this is how you should breathe. but the deeper story is where people can get much more invested in this stuff. So when we've talked about breathing through the nose, I'm more convinced now than I've ever been that if you don't breathe through your nose, you will never, ever be healthy. I don't care what foods you eat. I don't care how much you exercise, how much you sleep. You have to breathe through your nose. And you see this all the time with the clinicians and researchers I've worked with. These people are even ultra marathoners. They're eating all the right foods. They're constantly breathing through their mouth, and they're constantly suffering from various problems. So number one, breathe through the nose. When you're breathing through the nose, naturally, the nose slows down the air. A lot of people say, oh, I don't get enough air because I'm breathing through the nose. You don't want too much air. Just like you don't want too much food, you want to use the air that comes into your body most efficiently. And that's what the nose does. So the nose slows down air, pressurizes air. It forces you to breathe more slowly. And by breathing more slowly, you get much more oxygen and you calm your body down. You can try it right now. Breathing 30 big breaths really fast. You'll feel maybe some lightness in your head, some tingling in your fingers. That's from a decrease of oxygen in those areas, a decrease of circulation. So by breathing slowly, you might feel your body warming up. That is you creating an increase of circulation throughout your body. So that's the slow part of it. Deep, you don't want to breathe just in the chest. If you're breathing slowly, if you're breathing through the nose, there's a good chance you're breathing deep. So this is a little redundant. It's very hard to breathe shallow and through the nose slowly, almost impossible. So that deep breath naturally comes with it, and it allows your diaphragm to sink down. And this is how you get more air with each breath you take to work more efficiently. That's it, everybody. That's all you need to know.
This is it, really. Yes, but I think it took you a long time and a really painful trying breathing through the mouth period, just to show your body how much it was, how much mouth breathing was costing it. Was it really worth it? I don't know. I could have told you that it wasn't. It's I don't know. It was like it was painful just reading about it, but also really funny, I should say. Very funny.
Well, I had never any intention of doing any of this self-experimentation, but we got to the point where literally there had been no studies done in human mouth breathing and nasal breathing. There had been observational studies looking at kids over a number of years, but no carefully controlled studies. There have been animal studies, monkey studies with mouth breathing and nasal breathing, which are so horrendous, just terrible, where they would plug their noses for 6 months or 2 years, look at their facial structure, and awful, but no one had done it with humans. And so that's why I volunteered for an experiment at Stanford University, which is about half an hour down from where I am in San Francisco. And for 10 days, that was the maximum they would allow us to do it. For 10 days, they said, you're not going to do this for any longer. We said, okay, we'll push it to the limit. We had our noses obstructed, and then for 10 days, we breathed only through our noses, and we looked at the data between that. It's just two people, so it doesn't mean anything. What we were doing was just personally experiencing what science is known for decades and decades. And yeah, it was painful. It was so much worse than we thought. I'll never do it again, but it was also very interesting.
And what about let's talk about posture, because I think that also counts. Granted, it's not part of your lungs, it's not breathing, but I think I picked up a thing or two about sitting up straight, and
So,
and and even Mark Zuckerberg has bad posture. I found out, right? Who knew? I didn't know.
so if you look around, if you're on the train, if you're in an airport, if you're looking around at a park at people, most people sit in this posture now.
Right.
They're looking at their phones like this. And this has just become this very standard posture. When you sit in this posture, you're craning your neck over your shoulders like this. And Zuckerberg has this, but he and every tech bro in San Francisco has this. It's just like everyone has it now. What's happening is your head is very, very heavy, and the spine is not designed to be hunched over like this. And so what you're doing is you're creating all of this tension right on the back of the neck and also on the lower back. And this is, I learned from many people, one of the main reasons so many people have lower back issues. It's not a back issue. It's because you're hanging your head over, and that will exert the equivalent of 60 pounds of pressure on your back. And you do this all day. This is one of the reasons why people get migraine headaches, why they have back pain, and so many other issues. How it's related to breathing is, if you think about, if somebody passes out, they drown or something, what's the first thing you do? You put your hand on the back of their head and you open up their throats. So right. A lot of researchers believe that people have started to adopt this pattern because of that facial growth that hasn't happened in the proper way, hasn't developed properly. And this is how you open the airway. Just like you do with an emergency technician, we'll go to open up your airways. So now we're all caught in this permanent position to open our airways. It's very sad, depressing stuff. And this is not my theory. This is all you have to do is go take a walk around and then look at some Greek statues or some ancient statues. Everybody is perfectly straight. Their spines are almost perfectly straight. There's natural curvature in the spine, of course, but they're like this. And you think, what's happened to us humans?
Yeah. Gadgets. I've to share with you, I have tried a little bit of the Tamo method, which you describe in the book. And also I have tried, holotropic, the holotropic breathing. And the main difference between my experience and yours, I think, they had us put an apparatus like a tube. We had to breathe through the mouth. We had to, and there was a lot of crying, and claw hands. But enough about me. What about your experience with Tamo, which I think you like very, very much? I get the feeling that you're still on that path, aren't you?
So the reason why they would have you breathe through the mouth during some of these practices, which is totally fine. I want to be very clear that I mentioned in the book, even though I've had to put another footnote in here, that I'm talking about habitual nasal breathing. Right now, I just breathe through my mouth. When you laugh, you breathe through your mouth. When you sigh, you breathe through. This is completely fine. When you're doing a 15-minute breathing exercise and it has you, this is perfectly fine, everybody. So I'm talking about, how are you breathing the other 23 and a half hours of the day, right? That habitual breathing. How are you breathing at night? It needs to be through the nose. So some exercises, some pranayama exercises, some holotropic teachers have you breathe through the mouth because they want to hyperventilate you. That is the point. And the reason they want to hyperventilate you is they want to stress you out. They want to stretch you out to the point where you break. And if that sounds dangerous, it can be, which is why you do this with a trained teacher. So that over hyperventilation is something you are doing on purpose. The hyperventilation that you do with your mouth open when you're sitting in front of your computer all day, unconscious of it, is something that is you're not doing on purpose and is so damaging to your body if you're doing it all day. So I made that very clear. That's the caveat. But some of these exercises have you breathe through your mouth, and they're great. They're wonderful. Holotropic breath work. I'm still wondering how much of when people respond, how much is really the breathing and how much is them just in the setting wanting to freak out. I had the same experience doing holotropic breath work. Looked across after 10 minutes, some lady wasn't breathing any faster than I was and was, had reverted into a baby and was running around the room. That's cool. That's what she wants to do. But as someone who wants to look at the science of this, I want to find out what the breathing is doing. And then the psychologist can debate what happens when people go through these situations when they're breathing this way. So Tumo breathing, Wim Hof breathing, you could call it a zillion different things. It's fantastic. I absolutely love it. It's a very powerful tool. It's not for everybody. Okay. It's very aggressive and some people don't like that. Then don't do it. I'm not here to tell you what to do, what not to do. I found something that worked for me. Sudarshan Kriya is very similar to Tumo breathing, which is why all of these things affect people in the same way in scientific studies. It's great for some autoimmune issues. It's great for anxiety. It's great for depression because they're doing the same thing. So what's great about breathing is it's free. It's available to everyone. Anyone can do it anywhere. And you can find the thing that works for you. Everyone's different.
Yeah, and in that matter, I really appreciated the bit at the end where you go you really teach each technique, and I think the readers will will find that very useful. I certainly did, because throughout the book you wonder how it's done, and you really describe it. So thank you for that. Another revelation for me was the not breathing part, that carbon dioxide. What that did to your body. That was fascinating. Holding your breath. Who knew?
If you're someone who does Qigong, one of the main practices of Qigong is breath control. The whole thing is about breath control. Even when you're working out at high aerobic rates, you're controlling your breath. And when you work out with a Qigong master, which I was doing on Sunday, Lee Holden, who's been studying this stuff for 30 years, even when you're doing all of these very vigorous exercises, you are just slowing down your breathing. So part of conditioning yourself to slowing down your breathing is to learn to hold your breath. And these ancient Chinese books write all about breath holding. I included a few of the quotes in the book, but it's extraordinary. These books are 2,000 years old, 1,500 years old. And they're talking about all the benefits of breath holding. The reason why we want to hold our breath and control our breathing this way, not only is it good to calm ourselves down, but on a biochemical level, it allows us to build up carbon dioxide. A lot of people may be thinking, why do I want to build up carbon dioxide? Like, we have viewed carbon dioxide as this terrible molecule because there's too much of it in the atmosphere, which is true. If anyone actually reads scientific papers, there's too much CO2. It's causing crazy climate change problems. But a lot of us don't have enough CO2 in our bodies, which is why our fingers are always cold, which is why we have problems with circulation. So we need a balance of carbon dioxide and oxygen. And that's what breath holding exercises allow you to do. They allow you to come into control of your breathing, which allows you to control aspects of your immune function and your nervous function and your mental function, and it also increases CO2.
And if we can, are you there? I was wondering if we.
I'm here. Yes.
I was also delighted to read about, I don't know how to pronounce this, Porges,
Mm-hmm.
the polyvagal theory, because
Mm-hmm.
it's synchronicity. Just about 10 days ago, I interviewed a yogi who was talking about the same thing. And she shared with us the knowledge that in order to um, um, uh, give up, poke the vagus system, we have to breathe, we have to hum. And she said, get cold, go out there, play in the snow. And would you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I'm going to be speaking with Stephen Porges in January with also Robert Lustig and a whole group. His work is incredible. He's been studying this for more than 30 years. And the fact that they still call it a theory, I think is wrong. I think that this is polyvagal fact right now that we're
Right.
talking about. And what it is for people who aren't familiar with it is Porges had realized that there's another mechanism in our nervous system that allows us to turn on organs and to turn off organs and to respond to things. So when we're stressed out, this system, the vagus nerve, turns on other parts of the body, turns on skeletal muscles, and increases blood flow to these areas, turns on the brain so we can fight something or we can run away from something. This is a stress response. Very important.
Fight or flight.
Yes, we wouldn't be alive without the stress response. But this system also relaxes us and brings all those organs back online to function. The problem is in this day and age, our view of stress, our threshold of stress is so low that we get a email from our bosses in our inbox and we have this fight or flight reaction. And our body doesn't know the difference between us running or fighting a tiger and us perceiving a threat in our inbox. So all those functions in the body turn on. And when those functions in the body turn on for long enough, they deny our organs the energy and blood flow and everything else they need. And after years and years, the organs shut down. And you see this all over society now. These people who have these clusters of problems, they have irritable bowel problems, they have sexual problems, they have kidney problems, and they're treated individually for each of these problems, but no one's looking at the core issue, which is chronic low-grade inflammation and stress. So that's what the polyvagal fact is. We're starting this right now. It is the polyvagal fact of how our bodies work.
Because they're not humming, and because they're not breathing, and because they're not going out in the snow, I guess.
I will, as much as I love breathing and humming and cold exposure, you can turn on the vagus system in other ways beyond those. Those are great hacks to use. I use them all the time. Everyone go and use them. Wonderful tools. They're free. But there are other ways.
Oh, rocking.
Rocking is fantastic. And you think of all these things our ancestors did. They did all those things. They sang a lot. They hummed a lot. Rocking chairs were a very big deal. And you rock and you create this sense of what it is, what Porges believes it is this sense of safety and security. And when you have that, all your defenses go down and your body responds to that and is able to function normally. So all of these are just hacks to get to that state. You can also, if you're a meditator, you don't need to hum or breathe, even though that's wonderful. You can use your mind to put yourself in that state. If I'm in the ocean, I don't need to hum or breathe. I am in this calm state. And everyone's got their own little ocean state or meditative state. But humming and breathing and rocking are wonderful ways to speed that process up.
Thank you. And what about this may be my last question. What about this interesting tidbits between chewing and in relation to mouth breathing and how we can help ourselves by, for instance, chewing gum or maybe eating a carrot. I think you're suggesting that we have to sort of like gnaw on hard foods. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. So you think about, why have so many humans gotten crooked teeth? This is a question I asked, and I looked at here in the United States, the National Institutes of Health. They told me the reason why people have crooked teeth is it's genetic. You get them from your parents. And I thought, if that's true, why in a single generation does 50% of a population get crooked teeth who haven't had crooked teeth before? It has nothing to do with genetics. So we know that about 50% of how our mouth is going to form, how we're going to look, is genetic, 50%. But that means the other 50% is determined by environmental factors. And those environmental factors that help form a proper mouth, that help form straight teeth, are dictated primarily by chewing. So early in life, breastfeeding is included under the chewing umbrella. The longer kids are breastfed, the more their faces get pulled out, the larger their mouths become, the larger their airways become, the less apt they will be of suffering from snoring and sleep apnea later on in life. I want to be so clear. I've heard from so many very angry women. I am not blaming anyone for anything. I was bottle fed from the get-go. I will never have kids. I will never be breastfeeding. I am giving you facts, scientific facts, and you can do with this what you want. So there's no finger pointing at anybody here. So even more importantly, in my opinion, is after that stage of breastfeeding, what foods are kids eating, right? In here in the US, they're weaned right onto like applesauce and carrots and soft canned stuff.
Right.
None of our ancient ancestors
Formula.
ate this stuff. Formula. None of our ancestors ate this stuff. Yeah. Okay. What did they do when they weren't breastfeeding? They were chewing hard food. And by chewing hard food, you build the skeleton, the musculature of this. So there's been so many studies into this, animal studies. They've looked at humans over decades and decades, and this is what it is. So I'm glad you brought up here on this interview in Turkey the act of chewing gum, because I searched and searched for the hardest gum I could find. I wanted a vigorous workout, because a lot of the gum here in the US is very soft, it's like barely there. I wanted something that felt like eating a carrot or eating a steak.
You know, James, when I read it, I did a double take. I thought that was just a translator, you know, like inserting that for like Hubba Bubba or something. I was like, really? I mean, this is, you know, what we, you know, I thought that was the translator's job, trying, you know, maybe, you know, or doing, you know, inserting a brand just to make it recognizable. But it's you then. It's you.
Well, the fact that you know Hubba Bubba is mind blowing, because that was the stuff that I was eating back in the day. I guess we shouldn't be talking about brands. So I just wanted to say, is Turkish. I am a huge fan of that brand we mentioned, right. And it's interesting to see it sold out on Amazon out here in the US. But mastic gum, which comes from a tree, and there's no specific brand, you can get this stuff. It's very hard. It's traditional Greek gum. It's very, very hard. And that stuff works great as well. But you don't need gum. What you need is hard foods. Carrots work well. I won't give any brand name for carrots. You know, meat, if you're into that, is fine. But you just think about, what did our ancestors do that we aren't doing? Well, they chewed a lot every single day. And by chewing, not only can you help open up your airways, even as an adult, you can help open up your airways. You pump more blood to your brain. You release fluids in your sinuses and eustachian tubes. We're designed to do this, which is why we have these very powerful jaws. Most of us don't do it at all.
And if I don't ask you this, there are a lot of people, our readers are wondering about the wearing masks thing. And I promise this is my last question to you. Due to COVID-19, has it, you know, wearing masks all day long, has this affected our breathing? I tried to look at traces of COVID. Obviously, this you published this on 2020, but what is your take on the pandemic and wearing masks and breathing?
Yeah, the book came out about 6 weeks into lockdown here. And when it came out, one guy said, he's like, oh, very convenient. You wrote this book really quickly to get it out during, as anyone in publishing knows, the book was printed 6 months ahead of time. So while I was working on this book, did I have any idea that we were about to enter into years and years of a respiratory pandemic? Of course, I did not. And so I get this question all the time. And yes, masks affect your breathing, but not in the way that you think they do. So many people write me, hundreds and hundreds of people write me all the time. And whenever I do public speaking, they ask, this mask, I'm wearing this mask and I'm not getting enough oxygen and I can't stand it. And, instead of just spending all your nights up all night writing on Facebook of how the mask isn't getting enough oxygen, if people would just spend like 2 minutes looking at the science. If you don't want to look at the science, you can get a pulse oximeter, which are about $10 here in the US, and you can just look at your finger and you can see that the mask is not depriving you of any oxygen, okay, at all. If this were true, then surgeons who have been wearing masks for 100 years would all be deprived of oxygen, and dentists would all be deprived of. This is not the fact. What is happening is there is a slight increase of carbon dioxide, usually not a lot at all. And that need to breathe is dictated, as we learned from the book, not by oxygen, but by an increase of carbon dioxide. These people are so unaccustomed to having a little bit of more carbon dioxide that they think they're suffocating, but they aren't. It's a psychological problem. You can talk to a psychologist, you're like, okay, now we're getting into some areas that are legitimate. People feel like they're being covered up, they're being stunted, they're being held back. That's all real. They're being gagged. That's all real. But the biochemistry of this is you are perfectly fine with that. I want to mention one other thing that I think all of the world's governments did a terrible job at, is they told us to wear masks. That's reasonable. There is science now. At the beginning, there wasn't too much science. Is this really stopping the spread of the virus? And from what I saw, that science was weak. Now it's strong, okay? Now there are several studies showing it really helps. But what governments did is they told us to wear masks. Okay, they did not tell us how to breathe while wearing a mask. And so if you look around when people are wearing masks, the vast majority, 80, 90% they're breathing in and out of their mouths. And you can see this because, of course, I have my mask right here. When you see this,
yeah,
all the time, this is terrible for you, okay? Because your mouth breathing, which is stressing you out, and it's increasing all that stress response in your body. And if you have a very cheap mask, you are just inhaling all of anything that's on that mask directly into your lungs. So when you're wearing a mask, everybody, you have to be breathing through your nose. Very important. I guess you're not going to hear it from the WHO, but you're going to hear it from us here today on this interview. Breathe through your nose while wearing a mask.
Wow, this has been so great, James. Thank you. You've been so generous with your time. And I don't think we revealed everything. There's much, much more to discover. And this has been a fine preview, I think. But I think the rest, we should leave it with the readers, right? I think we intrigued them just enough. But thank you. Thank you so very much for your time. And do you have any questions for us?
Thanks a lot for having me, everybody.